Hey everyone, I'm Mann, and today I want to talk to you about residential planning approval in New South Wales. Or to put it another way, how do you get your new home, your alteration, or your addition approved? So, firstly, is this Australian wide? What I'm going to talk about is really based on New South Wales. There are some regulations or legislation that are Australian wide. So the National Construction Code, of course, is one of those. But the way that we do the planning approval or the building approval is different in each state of Australia. So I'm going to mostly focus on New South Wales. So where's that process start? Of course, it should start with design. Before we get to the planning approval stage, we need to have a really good, robust design. Because once we've gone through this arduous effort of getting the house approved, we don't want to be making changes. Now, it's possible to do this, and this unfortunately does happen all the time, but if we can help it, we'd prefer to get all of the design done first. And that means getting the architect or getting the building designer to do a very thorough design process, working with them to make sure that it meets your brief, your budget, meets the legislation requirements. Make sure that you have the funds available and the time available in order to be able to get the building project done. Once the design is ready, and in another video I'll talk about that design process and what that looks like. But once the design's ready, we're then ready to start the planning approval. Now, of course, the way that we approach the planning approval is also going to affect the design approach or the design outcome. So when we're trying to get a building approved or a residential building, a house, again, a new house, an alteration or addition, the way that we get it approved is based on the design, or the design is based on the approval process. What do I mean by that? There's two main methods to get something approved in New South Wales, and that's either through a DA, a development application, or a CDC, a complying development certificate. And the main difference of these, we could say this in a couple of different ways. DA will be done through council. That's the only way to do it. So local government. A CDC, a complying development certificate, could be approved through council, or it could be approved through a private certifier. What makes the CDC different is that it's set up by the state government, and it has another acronym, an SEPP, a State Environment Planning Policy, and the intention is that it's a fast-tracked system. A DA is a subjective approval, and really it requires the professional planners in a council who have a lot of experience, who have an understanding of design and have a very detailed understanding of the legislation that we have to follow to get something approved through council. They can assess the design on its merit. So if it's a good design, even if it doesn't meet every single rule or code or recommendation, the good design can get approved based on its merit. The difference is with a CDC, a complying development certificate, in order to make it fast-tracked, it needs to completely follow the regulation. So we could call that objective as opposed to a subjective approval process. So you must meet every single condition of the SEP, the State Environment Planning Policy, in order for that CDC to be approved. Now, the thing that makes this a little bit more complicated is a CDC is a planning and building approval in one. Or another way of saying that would be, if we're going through local government, council to get it approved, that's called a DA stage, or a development application. And that's followed up by a CC, a construction certificate. Now, a CDC is the combination of the DA and the CC together. To make things a little bit more complicated, once we get that DA approved through council, we could then get council to act as the PCA, the Principal Certifying Authority, or we could get a private certifier to act as the PCA, Principal Certifying Authority. So once the DA is approved, a certifier in any type, either through council or through private business, can administer that CC process, the construction certificate. And then, so that's the first three, let's say DA, CC, or CDC. That's the culmination of the DA and CC process, or the equivalent of. Then the next stage, the fourth stage, is the building process. The PCA, the Principal Certifying Authority, oversees the building process. They make sure that everything is being built according to code and, of course, according to the approvals. And then finally, at the end of the building process, that same person, that's really important, that same business or that same certifier is then responsible for providing the OC, the occupation certificate. And so whoever you choose to get the certifying done by, whether that's council or a private certifier, they have to see that through for the whole process. You can't change once it gets started. You have to run with that same person the whole way through. So that's a very quick overview of the 5 stages of planning and building approval. I hope that helps. And in the next video, we'll have a look at how does each one of these stages work? What does it look like? What do we need to be aware of? And how can we design well in order to streamline these processes?